I found the moderator for the next debate. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Motley Show, where we try to look at one of the bigger stories in news and politics each week, step outside the echo chamber, and see what's really going on. Why should we really care? Now, of course, the biggest story for this week is the Democratic debate, the first debate that the Democrats have actually had, while GOP has had 2 so far. One of the biggest differences, of course, the GOP has 17 people to start with, meaning they ended up having to have 2 different debates, the adult table and the kids table. But the Democrats don't exactly have that problem. They only have 5 people running. Now, for many people out there, they might have only thought there were 2 people running, but let's go down the actual attendance for this debate. On the leftmost side of the stage, you had former Senator of Virginia Jim Webb. He was also Secretary of the Navy, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Reserve Affairs, Counsel for the United States House Committee on Veterans Affairs, and a Marine Corps officer, as he mentioned numerous times during the debate. Now, next to him, one of the people everybody already knew was going to be there is Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. Now, Bernie is the only independent in the current Senate, and he calls himself a Democratic Socialist, which is one of the biggest things that the GOP is using against him because they equate socialism to communism, and it's the Red Scare all over again. Next to him, of course, was the current frontrunner, former Secretary of State and former Senator from New York and former First Lady, Hillary Clinton. Now, to her right was former Governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley, who was also the former mayor of Baltimore. Now, for a lot of people who didn't know who he was before this, the only time you might have heard his name was recently when all the riots happened in Baltimore. Some of that tension and violence and everything that was building up in that city was actually blamed on him by some of the chief people still in Baltimore now, reaching back to some of the policies that he put in place, which of course he defended during the debate, but we'll get to that. And last, but I was going to say certainly not least, but really it is least, Lincoln Chafee, former governor of Rhode Island. He was also a mayor and a senator, which he also said numerous times during the debate. So of course this really did turn into the Bernie and Hillary show, but before we get into both of them, let's talk about what the other 3 had to do and what they did do or what they didn't do. Now, for all 3 of these candidates, the first thing was really the same. It was just to get their name out there to most of the public who doesn't know who they are, and then actually put out a statement for why they should look into them more, because no one was going to change their vote purely on this first debate. So their main goal was really to come off as being memorable, being sincere, and being someone interesting enough for the voter to look into them deeper. And in my opinion, the only person who actually did that was Martin O'Malley. Lincoln Chafee kind of got lost. He almost didn't seem like he knew exactly why he was there. And most of the people watching also didn't know why he was there. He was the only person to openly take a subtle shot at Hillary Clinton by routinely saying in his opening and his closing statement that one of the things he was most proud of was the fact that in 30 years of public service he had never had a scandal. Now, the reason of course he would say that was because your current frontrunner in the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, has been plagued by scandal after scandal after scandal. Some of those being manufactured by the opposing party, but some of those obviously coming from her and her activities. But Chafee stumbled later on when he was talking about one of the first votes he cast when he got into the Senate was something he actually didn't know what was in the bill. He had just gotten there and he explained that his father had died and it was a 90-5 vote, so why would he go against the pack? But he openly said he really didn't know what was in the bill. And you could just feel the audience walk away from him. If he gained any ground before that, I think he pretty much lost it all and never gained anything back. Now, moving over to the other side of the stage, Jim Webb comes off with this very powerful voice. He is a very powerful and imposing man, and he continually tells people about the fact that he was a Marine and that he was in Vietnam. So when it comes to foreign affairs, he claims the stage as being his. He says, I've been there, I've been in the weeds, I've felt the bullets rush by my face, and I'm the only person who's done that up here. But 2 things went very wrong for Jim Webb. 1, he didn't get a lot of time at the microphone, and he continually complained about that. I'm not saying that I don't understand his frustration. It obviously would be frustrating to be brought up there and just not even talked to, but he reacted to it badly. And then his last big slip was the last question of the debate, which is always a very silly one. And Anderson Cooper asked the candidates up on stage that in anybody's political career, they always make political enemies. And who is the enemy that you were proudest of? And the answers varied down the line. Chafee said the coal industry, Martin O'Malley said the NRA, Hillary Clinton said the Republicans, Bernie Sanders said the wealthy class, and then Webb basically said, the guy who once threw a hand grenade at me, but he's not around to argue with, and then just smiled in this weird way. And suddenly I just visualized the bumper sticker of, vote Jim Webb, I killed the guy. It was really a weird note to end on, and it just left everyone with this kind of really odd sensation of Webb as this kind of on the borderline crazy guy. So now let's move over to Martin O'Malley, who was easily the number 3 in the debate, and probably the person who gained the most out of this debate, because everybody already knows about Bernie Sanders and everybody knows about Hillary Clinton. Those 2 people have huge camps of support already. But Martin O'Malley, very few people actually knew if they didn't know him before. And the way that he handled himself through much of the debate was actually on par with Clinton and Sanders, meaning that at least he looked presidential next to them. He felt like he could share the stage, which is enough just to show his status going up. Now, will he gain a lot of actual voters off of this? Probably not. But at least he put in a good performance, and it means he should stay in for down the road. One of the things I liked about Martin O'Malley was he was able to get very personal about stories about people that he had actually affected when he was in office. Things that he went to, funerals he went to, parents and families that he sat with. Now, he did actually mention 2 specific people who were in the audience, but there was a small lack of sincerity in that particular mention because he had to look down at his podium to see what their names were. And if you don't know them by heart, that means you don't really know them that well. Now, he did talk a lot about gun safety and things that he would support in that area, which was a big thing for him. But when you talk about the violence in Baltimore, that was where he got a little bit tripped up because the people in Baltimore who were still there dealing with it, some of them blame him because he instituted zero tolerance policies, which actually took a lot of people and put them in jail. And he created a lot of racial disparity in the justice system there. Now, not saying that that's what he intended to do, but that's what happened. But he says he actually lowered that while he was in office. But Anderson Cooper pointed out that the NAACP and the ACLU actually sued him and his government, and they settled out of court, which, even if he doesn't admit it, does give off a sense of guilt. Now, Martin O'Malley also went after Clinton, one of the rare things that people did during this debate, about Glass-Steagall, basically saying that the financial fallout that happened in 2008 was directly related to the fact that Glass-Steagall was taken down. And this was a piece of legislation that actually kept the banks separated in terms of what they could do. Commercial banking from speculative banking were not allowed to be mixed in the same bank. But during Bill Clinton's presidency, he gave that away as actually a condition of something else that he wanted to get from the GOP. When he gave that away, the banks were able to merge their practices. And because of those practices, many of those big banks failed because they speculated on really, really bad deals. So O'Malley continually hit Hillary Clinton on that, but she pivoted away many, many times and would really not grasp the fact that she was part of that. But in actuality, was she part of it? I mean, she was first lady at the time. And later on, when Clinton was actually talking about the big banks and the financial fallout of 2008, she said that right before that happened, she was really strong about the banking industry and was really strong about trying to make sure that they were doing bad things with our money. And she says, I went to the big banks in New York. I represented those big banks as their senator, and I told them, cut it out. It was probably her worst moment in the debate because it really sounded childish. And she doesn't need that kind of thing because she's the only woman on stage. So anything that makes her seem less authoritative and more parenting is not a good thing for her. And it just sounded weak. It wasn't a strong argument. So Martin O'Malley in the end actually kind of held his own, but it wasn't enough to really break out and challenge the weight of the 2 other people on stage. Which brings me to Bernie Sanders. Now here's the guy that nobody thought actually had a chance when he announced that he was going to run, but now actually has leading poll numbers in some of the early primary states. Now once he gets into the South, when the actual voting public gets a little bit more ethnically diverse, he loses a lot of that support. The Clinton camp has what they kind of consider 2 of the 3 legs of the Obama coalition, which is Clinton has the women and Clinton has the minorities. The young people, that's the 3rd leg of that stool. The young people is what Bernie has in spades. And while much of the media is talking about how Clinton won the debate, you might actually think that all 3 of these people won the debate for different reasons between Clinton, Sanders, and O'Malley. Now, Clinton won the debate because the media says she won the debate. And the biggest thing about her is that she kind of had a certain bar that she had to hit, which was basically don't mess up. Don't do anything incredibly stupid. Don't get caught being frustrated or look out of sorts. And throughout the whole thing, she looked very well prepared, very sure in herself, very sure in her answers, and she looked presidential. That was really all she needed to do, and she did it, so she wins. But Sanders, on the other hand, he stayed to his own thing, he didn't change anything, he got angry when he wanted to get angry, and he had a really great moment, which I'll get into in a second. But the benchmarks that he hit that some might say he won the debate, on Facebook he had the most mentions, on Twitter he had the most mentions. He gained 35,000 followers on Twitter during the debate. After the debate was over, he gained $1.5 million in campaign contributions. He definitely rallied the most people. And that should make Clinton very scared about what he can do. She might have 77% of the Democratic voting public on her side right now versus Sanders, who has about 16% according to the latest polls, but that doesn't mean that that can't change. And the more he eats away at that lead, the more he puts himself in the way of her run to the White House. One of Sanders' biggest moments that showed the kind of politician that he is when Anderson Cooper was actually questioning Hillary Clinton about the email scandal. And after she gave her well-prepared canned answer about those emails, Sanders kind of jumped in and said, I want to say something about this. When he got the moment, he said, enough about the damn emails. He's like, I agree with the secretary. The scandal is worthless. It is nothing. It's ridiculous. It's totally partisan. And we've got bigger things to worry about. I go across the country and I talk to all these people and no one cares about the email scandal. And not only did he point out the GOP for keeping this scandal going, he pointed to the media itself. He basically pointed to Anderson Cooper and said, your company, CNN, is part of the problem. You keep covering this story and you keep making it a headline. Of course, people are going to continue to talk about it, but you're taking time away from the real issues. Wealth inequality, the wealthy class paying way little in taxes when the poor pay way more than they need to. So when Sanders actually did that, when he stepped up and defended Hillary Clinton, the crowd went wild because this is something that they love to see in the Democrats. They love to see them actually helping each other, actually standing with each other, united, versus the GOP, which basically is attacking each other left and right, calling each other stupid, calling each other clowns, attacking even the way that they look. So if you wanted to pick another winner for the night, it was the Democratic Party as a whole, because they put a face forward that purely looks different from the GOP, looks stronger, looks steadier, and basically looks like a more compassionate version of America, which is what people tend to vote for. Now, Sanders' weakest moment throughout the debate was the exact same moment that Hillary showed the kind of politician she is, because after he had stepped up and defended her, Sanders got questioned about guns. Now, as I talked about in one of my last shows, many people are trying to paint Sanders as a gun advocate and that he blocks gun safety legislation. Martin O'Malley and Hillary Clinton went after him for that. But Hillary's smart enough to know exactly why he made those votes, and he actually explained why he made certain votes. He said, no, I'm not going to vote for a gun store who legally sells a gun to a legally allowed person to have one, and then that person decides to go commit a crime with it. I'm not going to vote for that gun store to be held liable, because that doesn't make any sense. He said, now if a gun store sells it illegally, giving it to someone who shouldn't have a gun, yes, they should be held liable. And in fact, a gun store just recently was held liable by the courts, ordering them to pay $6 million to 2 people who got shot. So he's all for that. But he also said they have to be practical. They can't just say we want to make these really huge gun laws and taking away all these gun rights, because it'll never get through. They'll never get voted in because half the country, the rural parts of the country, aren't going to go for that. He says you have to accept the realities. But Hillary Clinton cut him down at the knees. She said, no, you don't have to accept those realities, and I think you're weak on guns. So after he defended her, she did not give him the same latitude, even though she knows he's not a gun advocate and he's not against gun safety legislation. She saw the open shot and she took it. Now, pivoting over to Hillary Clinton in total, she did have a really good night. One of the things that she did really well was she played the crowd. She went for the applause line. She knew exactly when to attack the Republican Party as a whole, when to attack the issues, and one of her biggest lines was when she talked about Planned Parenthood. And it wasn't even part of the question. Her answer just kind of stumbled into the idea about women's right to choose, and that the attack on Planned Parenthood is completely partisan and completely without fact, without base. And when she gave Planned Parenthood a full-throated defense, the crowd went absolutely nuts. She had obviously prepared for this debate really, really well. Whoever her team is, they had her prepped for every answer. You could see that she was ready for something to be thrown her way. She never looked rattled. She never looked unreasonably upset. Because of that and more, that's why the media is pitching the fact that she won the debate. But that brings up the question for this week. What do you guys think? Did you watch the debate, and who do you think won? Honestly, I'm going to leave out Webb, O'Malley, and Chafee. Just tell me if you think it was Bernie or Hillary. And what moments did you like the best? What moments did you like the least? Let me know in the comments down below. So thanks again for watching another episode of the Motley Stew Show. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, you can do so here. And if you wanted to subscribe to the daily vlogs that I've been doing, you can do that here. You can also like, favorite, and share this video with anyone else that you think might want to jump into the discussion. Stay tuned for next week. And as always, here's the kids. Can you say, thank you, Corey?
Thank you, Corey.
And show off your feet. Look at that.
Are you a monster?
Are you a dinosaur? And it can be done all the time with pretty much any topic you want, because data can be spun. Depending on who looks at that data, they can find pretty much anything they want. If I'm taking a normal commute to or back from work and it takes more than 90 minutes, I'm scratching at the edge of my sanity trying to get out of that car.